I am super keen to see how these two bikes compare. Santa Cruz have been on an absolute rip with new releases in the last few months. They've brought out the all-new Bronson, and that over there is, of course, the all-new Hightower. Now, Blake, you've been riding both bikes, mate.
Yeah.
On paper, very, very similar, these two bikes, aren't they?
I was actually pretty bloody surprised when I realised how similar the geometry is. I was also surprised that the Hightower is a couple of millimetres shorter than the Bronson. Hightower being full 29er, Bronson being MX. They're basically made the same bike, but one specifically around 29er rear wheel, one specifically around 27.5.
That's right. So we're talking exact same travel, front and rear.
Yep.
And they've even got identical reach.
Identical reach, yeah, between the two, yeah.
Which is pretty remarkable if you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, let's start to, I guess, unpack why Santa Cruz have gone and done that. Obviously, a bike designed specifically for people that want a 2.9 or the MX, more flickability.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, yeah, when they've got the exact same travel, that's a lot of crossover. Who are these two bikes catering for?
Essentially, it could be the same rider. It could just be that, you know, someone has spent a lot more time and is more comfortable with a 29-inch rear wheel versus a slightly less grip, maybe, of a 27.5 rear wheel. But like you said, a bit more maneuverability. You can get over the back of the bike a little bit easier, which is generally what I lean towards. But essentially, Santa Cruz recognised that there's two different groups of people. People that prefer MX, people that prefer full 29er. And Santa Cruz are very headstrong in the way that they don't want to make a compromise within their bikes. They don't want to make a bike that they say can do both things, when really there has to be a compromise.
Exactly. Now, one of the biggest things, we talked about the same reach on the same travel.
Yep.
Perhaps the biggest update when we talk about this bike as a standalone, that bike as a standalone, the thing that Santa Cruz are really stoked on is how they've reduced that anti-squat. The way they've done that is all about the VPP layout.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how they've achieved, and then I guess ultimately, you know, who cares how they've achieved it? Everyone wants to know what it actually translates to out on the trail.
Absolutely. So to the naked eye, you could assume that, okay, they've done an update for aesthetics or just to create a different look, but this is an update that is purely born from performance. They've gone and redesigned the kinematics of the whole suspension platform. It is still tried and true VPP, there's no doubt about that. But they've essentially moved the shock forward within the body of the frame so that they can alter the positions of the links, so on and so forth, in order to reduce that anti-squat. Now they've reduced it, but they haven't completely gotten rid of it. Anti-squat, people might think that, oh, the less anti-squat, the better, but that's not necessarily the case.
To an extent though, isn't it?
To a point. But obviously the less anti-squat you've got, the more of a bobby type of a feel you'll get to the bike. A higher anti-squat will mean that the suspension sort of packs up through the drivetrain. So rather than going and sort of following suit with a lot of other brands and going to maybe like a high pivot design, they've just manipulated their original VPP design to get that anti-squat right where they wanted it, and they absolutely nailed it.
Blake, when we talk about nailing it, you started riding the Bronson. Obviously, this bike came out about a month before the Hightower.
Yep.
Both are only just, in fact, I don't even think he's doing in Australia just yet. Stock's drive real soon. The really hot releases. The first time you rode this bike, what was the most notable thing about how it pedaled? Because I remember you basically left me a voicemail, and I was like, oh, okay, I would never have thought of that.
Yeah, so basically, if you haven't ridden a high pivot bike or anything like that before, there's a certain sensation that comes from that where you can almost sense that the rear wheel is moving out of the way. So it's moving backwards and up, getting out of the way of rocks or square edge hits, anything like that. Not only while you're coasting down the hill, but also specifically while you're pedaling.
You're talking about a high pivot though, not one of these.
High pivot, yeah. So, and that's kind of, you're getting that same type of sensation from the new updated VPP, where you can feel that rear wheel getting up and out of the way of the things. And I didn't really expect to feel that much difference while you're pedaling back up the hill. Like, this thing leaps up the hill.
So is it giving you more grip if it's basically hugging, like if you were to pedal up here, like hugging that?
Yeah.
That's giving you essentially more grip, right?
Yes, and like not only from the anti-squat, but also through the redesign of the suspension system, they've enabled themselves to have a little bit of a like off the top. So the first section of that travel feels a little bit more plush without compromising the end of the stroke. So you've also got a little bit more of a plush feeling, a little bit softer suspension in the initial part of the stroke, which again is creating more grip as well.
So, in terms of pedaling efficiency, obviously, we're not getting any fitter or younger.
Yeah.
You want to obviously eke out as much performance, or it's less draining your legs as possible,
Yeah.
and the efficiency of the bike. How does the new VPP of the both bikes translate to efficiency versus like the older generation?
I was a little bit blindsided by this when I first got on them. Spent a lot of time in the recent months, specifically kind of on e-bikes and on the V10 downhill bike. So when I first got back on that Bronson, it had been a while since I'd spent some time on a lighter weight trail bike. So it took a little while to get used to that in the first place, and then spent a little bit of time on a couple of other similar bikes, and it is so damn efficient. Like it's one thing, it's obviously a very high-end build, as is the Hightower that they've supplied us, luckily enough. So it's a very light build bike, but they just pedal so damn good.
Unreal. Well, that's a bit more of a first impressions in terms of comparing these two bikes. Now, one of the cool things is Santa Cruz is going to let us hold on to these a little bit longer, because what we really want to try and dive deeper into, spend more time, or Blake's going to spend more time riding both bikes. We really want to explore who the Bronson's ideally situated for,
Yep.
and who the Hightower is going to really get the most out of that bike. Because obviously, like Blake said, there's probably going to be a lot of a swap over. But if you're sitting at home viewing this at the moment, you're like, well, which is, for me, obviously, I can't buy two bikes. We're going to try and really decode that and kind of demystify really which of these bikes is going to be ideal for you, the viewer. So definitely stay tuned to our channel and to our website for plenty more content on the brand new latest generation Santa Cruz bike.